Melody is walking proof that being ridiculously talented doesn't automatically come with common sense. She can clone herself, fly through monster territory, cook a 5-star banquet before sunrise, and probably solve world hunger by lunch. Yet she's dead serious about earning Employee of the Month at the local mansion. Sis is built like the final boss, and chose NPC as a career. The story opens with an old mansion sitting in complete silence, looking less like a home and more like a place the world itself forgot existed. Every tree, flower, and patch of grass surrounding it has been burned down to black ash, while massive cracks crawl across the walls and broken furniture lies scattered through the empty halls, making it painfully obvious that nobody has called this place home for a very long time. The only soul still living inside this gloomy wreck is a young girl named Luciana, who spends her days quietly wandering through what little remains of the mansion's former beauty. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, the entire mansion is swallowed by a brilliant magical light that floods every inch of the property. Instead of fading away after a few moments, the mysterious glow keeps working its magic day after day, until just 2 weeks later, the impossible becomes reality. The crumbling mansion stands tall once again as if time itself hit the rewind button. While the burned trees burst back to life, colorful flowers bloom across the once dead garden, and fresh green grass blankets the ground, transforming what looked like a haunted wasteland into a breathtaking estate that nobody would have believed was the very same place. A maid warmly welcomes Luciana's invited guests as they arrive at the newly restored mansion. Luciana happily greets her 2 close friends because she has finally arranged the tea party she has always wanted. Everyone takes their seats together while Melody carefully prepares fresh tea with great attention. The peaceful atmosphere allows everyone to relax as they admire the impressive surroundings and enjoy spending time together inside the magnificent mansion. After taking a sip of the tea, everyone is instantly hooked by its rich flavor and refreshing taste. But the real show stealer is the mansion itself. Just 2 weeks ago, this place looked ready to get bulldozed, and now it's standing there like it never had a rough day in its life, leaving the guests scratching their heads over how somebody pulled off a glow-up this filthy in such a short time. Before spilling the whole story, Luciana quietly looks at her maid for the green light, then starts explaining how the impossible became reality. Once the tea party wraps up and the guests head out, Luciana sincerely thanks Melody for carrying the entire gathering on her back. From the tea to the preparations, she handled every little detail without dropping the ball. But one thing still doesn't add up in Luciana's mind. With skills like these, Melody could have made a killing anywhere, so why lock herself into working as a maid? The story then rolls back to Melody's childhood. The first time she sees a maid in action, she's completely locked in, amazed by how effortlessly the woman juggles every responsibility thrown her way. From that day forward, Melody starts grinding non-stop, helping with every chore she can find, folding clothes, assisting her mother, and slowly becoming the kind of person who can handle just about anything without breaking a sweat. Unfortunately, life doesn't care how hard somebody grinds. One quiet day, Melody is sitting beside her mother while a candle burns peacefully nearby, when the tiny flame suddenly taps out. And at that exact moment, so does her mother. Melody desperately tries to wake her, but reality doesn't budge an inch. With no choice but to swallow the world's nastiest pill, she buries her beloved mother, who leaves behind one final letter meant only for her. The heartfelt letter reveals that Melody's mother always dreamed of becoming a maid. Unfortunately, because Melody's father, who is Count Regibus, has an extremely high status, she never receives the opportunity to follow that dream. She firmly believes Melody will achieve what she never can, and hopes her daughter grows into the finest maid in the entire world. Deeply moved after reading every word, Melody promises herself that she will fulfill her mother's final wish. Later, Melody attempts to light a candle with magic. She fully expects another failure because every previous attempt has ended the same way. Believing she has no mana at all, she almost loses hope. However, the candle suddenly lights and magical energy finally flows through her body. Realizing her powers have awakened, Melody joyfully changes her silver hair to black to hide her noble identity. Soon afterward, 2 noble knights named Maxwell and Lectius come to search for Melody in the town. During the search, Lectius accidentally bumps into Melody while walking through a busy road. Without realizing who she truly is, he politely helps after she asks where she can find a carriage. He points her toward the correct location, and both of them peacefully continue on their separate paths. Neither of them realizes they have just met the very person the knights have been searching for across the entire region. A short time later, Melody boards a carriage filled with many passengers. To protect herself from anyone connected to her past, she introduces herself using a completely different name. Although her real name is Celeste, she deliberately chooses the name Melody because she never wants anyone to recognize her noble background or discover the life she leaves behind forever. As the journey continues, Maxwell relaxes while enjoying the unusually smooth ride. Before long, everyone notices that the carriage barely shakes despite traveling across rough roads. The comfortable trip becomes possible because the carriage driver secretly uses magic to remove every bump along the way, allowing the passengers to travel peacefully without feeling any discomfort throughout the entire journey. After finally reaching the destination, Melody begins searching for a way to achieve her lifelong dream. She learns from Maxwell that anyone wishing to become a maid should first visit the Commerce Guild. Without wasting any time, she immediately heads there and quickly receives a suitable job. The assignment requires only one maid to take complete responsibility for every household duty inside a large mansion without receiving help from anyone else. Instead of becoming worried after learning about the overwhelming amount of work, Melody feels genuinely excited because this responsibility perfectly matches the dream she has carried since childhood. She has already spent years practicing every household chore with great dedication, so taking care of an entire mansion alone feels like the perfect opportunity to prove her abilities and honor her late mother's final wish. Soon afterward, Melody finally arrives at Luciana's mansion. Although it is still nothing more than a broken and abandoned ruin, she does not hesitate to begin her new job. Luciana warmly comes outside to welcome her new maid. Melody immediately notices that Luciana looks untidy because nobody has been maintaining the mansion for a long time. She even carries an unpleasant smell after handling every responsibility by herself, yet her innocent appearance still makes her look surprisingly adorable. After introducing herself as the maid assigned by the Commerce Guild, Melody receives a welcome inside the mansion. Wanting to be a thoughtful host, Luciana attempts to prepare tea for her guest. However, she accidentally pours far too many tea leaves into the cup, completely ruining the balance. Seeing the mistake, Melody politely takes over the preparation. She first uses water magic to fill the cup, before carefully brewing a perfect cup of tea. The wonderful taste immediately amazes Luciana, filling her with happiness and making her appreciate Melody's impressive skills. While exploring the mansion, Melody becomes curious about the rest of the household staff. She expects several maids to be working inside such a large estate. Instead, Luciana reveals that no other maids remain there anymore, meaning Melody is the only person responsible for taking care of everything throughout the enormous mansion by herself. The story then shifts into Luciana's past, and before the mansion falls into ruin, her parents send her to a magical academy located far away from home. Because the academy is so distant, Luciana has no choice but to live alone inside the family mansion. An elderly maid is assigned to look after her, but managing such a massive estate becomes too difficult because of her age. Eventually, the elderly maid leaves, forcing Luciana to handle every household responsibility completely alone. As the endless work continues piling up, she slowly loses hope and struggles to maintain both the mansion and herself. Everything begins changing after Melody arrives. She confidently accepts responsibility for every household task and promises to manage the entire mansion herself. Luciana even offers to help whenever necessary, but Melody immediately begins working without hesitation. Using her magic, she changes into her proper maid uniform and proudly embraces the role she has always dreamed of fulfilling. Another flashback reveals Melody's past life as Ritsuko before entering this new world. She is originally an ordinary student who becomes fascinated after seeing a graceful maid working at a restaurant. From that day onward, she studies everything about maids and dreams of becoming one herself. Later, her parents allow her to continue studying abroad, but her airplane catches fire during the flight, causing her death. The scene shifts as Melody quickly realizes fresh vegetables inside the city cost an arm and a leg, so instead of letting those prices rob her blind, she puts her magic to work. Using teleportation magic, she slips beyond the city walls in an instant, then stacks wind magic on top of it to soar across the sky like she's got first-class access to the clouds. To make sure nobody catches on, she throws invisibility magic into the mix, turning every supply run into the cleanest ghost mission imaginable. Once she reaches the nearby forest, Melody searches through the trees, gathering mushrooms, herbs, and every useful ingredient she can find, though she's still hoping to score some fresh meat for dinner. As if the universe heard her, a giant bird suddenly comes dive-bombing out of nowhere, but it picked the wrong woman to mess with. Melody sidesteps the attack without breaking a sweat, before dropping the bird with a single clean strike, then carries it home already planning tonight's menu. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, everyone is busy with their own responsibilities. Luciana remembers Melody boldly claiming she could handle every household chore herself, but she still wants to pull her own weight. So after finishing the cleaning, she heads over to tackle the laundry. Unfortunately, before she can even lift a finger, Melody casually shows up and reveals every last piece of clothing has already been washed, leaving Luciana standing there wondering if she's even got a job anymore. Still refusing to sit around doing nothing, Luciana makes one last attempt by heading into the kitchen to help prepare dinner, only to have her brain completely blue screen. The moment she walks in, she finds multiple copies of Melody using magic to cook different dishes all at once, each clone working like a perfectly synchronized crew. The sight is so ridiculous that Luciana's body simply clocks out on the spot, and by the time she wakes up, Melody is already checking on her like nothing unusual even happened.
Huh?
Later that evening, everyone gathers around the table and digs into a dinner so good it practically speaks for itself. When Melody casually mentions she flew into the forest, smoked a wild bird, and brought it back for the meal, Luciana can't help appreciating the effort. But she's also low-key horrified after realizing where the ingredients came from. Knowing how dangerous that forest really is, she asks Melody not to gamble with her safety again. And after seeing how genuinely worried Luciana is, Melody simply nods and promises she won't head back there unless it's absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace, the king receives an urgent report that monsters are gathering near the kingdom. Fortunately, the magical barrier surrounding the city continues preventing every monster from entering. Another official then reports that someone has somehow crossed the barrier without activating its defenses. The mysterious intruder is secretly Melody, who enters and leaves the city by cleverly using her teleportation magic without anyone discovering the truth. Back at the mansion, Melody remembers Luciana's tea party will take place in only 1 week. Luciana explains that the invited guests are her childhood friends. She welcomes them to the mansion, but they become frightened after seeing its ruined condition and quickly leave. This time, she hopes everything becomes perfect. Melody notices Luciana looking happier than ever while wearing a beautiful dress and preparing for the important event. Wanting everything to succeed, Melody begins teaching proper noble etiquette. The training focuses on graceful walking, elegant posture, and refined movements. Luciana repeatedly loses her balance during practice, but Melody patiently keeps encouraging her until she finally masters every movement. As the special day approaches, Luciana gains confidence thanks to Melody's guidance. Later, Melody visits the market to purchase medicine and other important supplies. During her shopping, another maid named Paula accidentally opens a bottle, spilling its contents all over Melody's clothes. Feeling responsible, Paula repeatedly apologizes and insists on bringing Melody to the mansion where she works, so she can change into clean clothes. Although Melody initially refuses, she eventually accepts the offer. While bathing there, she quietly restores her original appearance through magic and gazes at her reflection in the water. Seeing herself resemble her late mother fills her heart with emotion, reminding her she is steadily moving closer to becoming the world's greatest maid, just as her mother always dreamed. Meanwhile, an unexpected accident takes place inside the mansion when Lectias unknowingly walks into the room while Melody is bathing. Completely embarrassed and caught off guard by the sudden interruption, Melody instinctively activates her magic without thinking. A powerful burst of energy instantly strikes Lectias, leaving him unconscious before he even understands what happens. Realizing she reacts purely out of surprise, Melody quickly calms herself and waits for him to recover, while hoping the misunderstanding does not become an even bigger problem. The story then shifts to a flashback showing an earlier conversation between Lectias and Count Regibus. Count Regibus hopes Lectias attends an upcoming tea party with a suitable companion instead of arriving alone. However, Lectias' attention remains somewhere else, because his mind is still occupied with finding Melody. Even while discussing important family matters, he cannot stop thinking about the mysterious girl who unexpectedly leaves a lasting impression on him. Back in the present, Lectias finally regains consciousness and carefully looks at Melody. Her appearance immediately reminds him of Celeste because their faces look almost identical. The only noticeable difference is that Melody has black hair while Celeste has beautiful silver hair. Although he briefly wonders whether they are actually the same person, he quickly dismisses the idea after remembering their earlier meeting inside the royal capital, where Melody politely asks him for directions to the carriage station before quietly continuing her journey. Soon afterward, Paula walks in and immediately gets Lectias back on track, reminding him that he's supposed to be resting instead of wandering around the mansion like he pays the bills. She then properly introduces Melody, clearing up the painfully awkward misunderstanding once and for all. Lectias explains that pulling all-nighters leaves him completely drained, so he only heads to the bath hoping to unwind, never expecting someone else to already be there. With everything finally cleared up, the whole misunderstanding quietly dies down.
I'm so stupid. Damn it.
Not long after, the story shifts back to Luciana's family as her parents finally arrive to visit the mansion. The moment they step onto the property, they're left completely speechless because the rundown estate they remember is gone, replaced by a beautiful mansion surrounded by colorful gardens and healthy trees. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots, and they quickly realize this insane glow-up started the moment Melody showed up. Luciana happily welcomes them inside and gives them a tour, while her father admits they constantly worried about leaving her alone in a place that used to look one stiff breeze away from collapsing. Luciana understands exactly where they're coming from and explains that everything changed after Melody arrived, because without her, keeping the mansion running would have been a nightmare nobody wanted to deal with. Naturally, her parents become curious about the maid responsible for pulling off what looks like a miracle, so Luciana invites them to stay for dinner. While preparing the meal, Melody once again pulls out her signature move by creating several magical copies of herself, with every clone handling a different core at the same time. Watching one maid suddenly become a whole workforce nearly makes Luciana's parents blue screen, and once they finally recover, they understand how Melody gets so much done without ever breaking a sweat. Sometime later, the day of Luciana's entrance ceremony finally arrives. Although her mother suggests taking Melody along for support, Luciana brushes it off, convinced she can handle one ceremony by herself. After she leaves, Melody goes back to cleaning as usual, but while organizing Luciana's room, she suddenly finds the entrance pass sitting there. Realizing Luciana accidentally left behind the one thing she absolutely can't afford to forget, Melody wastes no time heading straight for the ceremony. The story then jumps to a flashback, where two siblings, Anna and her brother, are traveling by plane before happily reuniting with Ritsuko. As the three chat, they begin talking about a popular game filled with important characters, romance roots, and major story events, only for the bombshell to drop that Melody is now living inside that very same game's world, meaning every choice from this point forward could completely change the future. Back in the present, Melody accidentally bumps into Christopher while searching for Luciana at the ceremony. After politely apologizing and explaining why she's there, Christopher kindly points her toward the gathering area for new students. Moments later, Maxwell walks over wondering why Christopher is still waiting around. And that's when it becomes clear he's expecting the White Saint to appear because everyone believes disaster is guaranteed if the White Saint never shows up. At the same time, Anna and her brother are revealed to be reincarnated characters from the very same game, already knowing exactly how badly things go if that fate is allowed to play out. Luciana becomes completely surprised after seeing Melody arrive with a partner for the upcoming ball. She cannot understand how an ordinary maid manages to bring such an important person to accompany her lady. Luciana already knows that every guest must attend the ball with a suitable partner, but she never imagined Melody could solve the problem so easily. Her confusion grows even stronger when the partner is finally revealed to be Maxwell himself. On the other hand, Marie and Lectius continue an intense training session inside the academy grounds. Marie repeatedly attacks him with her sword, while he struggles to block every strike before another powerful swing comes flying toward him. After barely escaping defeat, Lectius realizes Marie almost overpowers him despite his own abilities. During their short break, his thoughts return to the biggest mystery surrounding this world. The heroine of the original story still has not appeared anywhere, making him fear that the future is slowly changing into something completely different from the original timeline they both remember. Marie reminds Lectius that he has been reincarnated as a prince, meaning he should remain calm instead of constantly worrying about every unexpected event. Lectius accepts her advice and regains his composure before the story confirms that both of them have completely recovered every memory from their previous lives. Because they remember the original plot perfectly, they understand how dangerous even the smallest change can become. Every missing event creates another unexpected consequence, making the future increasingly difficult to predict with confidence. Marie also remembers that Maxwell is originally destined to fall deeply in love with the story's heroine. However, nobody knows where the heroine has gone or why she never appears inside the academy. If she remains missing forever, countless future events connected to her will never happen. Hoping to solve the mystery, Marie hands Lectius the complete student list from the academy. He carefully checks every single name from beginning to end, but the heroine's name never appears anywhere. The shocking discovery leaves both of them speechless because it confirms that something has drastically changed. The truth is far more surprising than either of them realizes. Melody is actually the real heroine of the original story, but she changes her appearance before anyone recognizes her. Instead of enrolling as a student, she chooses to live as a maid and quietly supports Luciana from the background. That single decision completely changes the original storyline. Since nobody discovers her true identity, every important event connected to the heroine slowly begins disappearing, creating one unexpected problem after another throughout the world. Marie only ends up getting even more frustrated because every answer she finds just opens the door to another headache. To make matters worse, she's secretly caught feelings for Maxwell, yet she's convinced fate has already picked someone else to stand beside him. Watching the future drift further away from everything she remembers only messes with her head even more. So she takes all that bottled up frustration straight into another training session, going after Lectius with far more intensity than before. Right in the middle of the sparring, Marie's engagement to Lectius has officially been approved, leaving both of them completely shell-shocked because in their previous lives they were siblings.
Huh?
Delete! 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 Delete!
Naturally, they do everything they can to shut the whole thing down. But fate isn't cutting anybody a break this time, and despite all their efforts, the engagement becomes official with no easy way out. Meanwhile, Melody runs into Maxwell again while walking through the academy. Spotting her maid uniform, he becomes curious about why she's there, and Melody happily explains that she's working for Luciana while thanking him for helping her, before Ploich. Once she notices his academy uniform more carefully, it finally clicks that he's from one of the kingdom's respected noble families, making her cringe a little over how casually she treated him. Maxwell, on the other hand, couldn't care less, brushing it off by saying real friendships aren't measured by family names or fancy titles. As the conversation continues, Melody casually mentions that Luciana still doesn't have anyone to accompany her to the upcoming ball, even joking that she'd turn herself into a guy if that's what it took. Maxwell doesn't waste a second before volunteering for the role himself, and the bright smile Melody gives in return catches him completely off guard. That single smile becomes the perfect transition into Maxwell's past, where it's revealed that his good looks and noble status have been both a blessing and a curse. Girls constantly surround him, but most of them only care about the family name attached to him, leaving Maxwell so fed up with fake affection that he eventually stops believing anyone genuinely wants to know the real him. That's exactly why meeting Melody changes everything. Unlike everyone else, she never fawns over his looks, his status, or the influence his family carries. She simply treats him like an ordinary person, speaking to him naturally without trying to score favors or climb the social ladder. And for the first time in years, Maxwell finds himself enjoying someone's company without wondering what they secretly want from him. The story then returns to the present as Maxwell finally introduces himself properly before escorting Luciana to the grand ball as her official partner. Luciana is both surprised and overjoyed because she never imagined Melody would somehow line up a companion like him, and as the two arrive together at the academy, they immediately become the center of attention, looking so elegant side by side that guests can't help stealing glances at the pair throughout the evening. After Luciana departs, Melody politely informs Luciana's parents that one of her friends has invited her to another ball, so she plans to spend the entire night there instead of returning to the mansion. After hearing her explanation, Luciana's parents warmly encourage her to enjoy herself without worrying about anything. They appreciate everything Melody has done for their daughter and believe she deserves a pleasant evening after working so hard every day. Their support makes Melody feel grateful before she quietly leaves to meet the person waiting for her. Later, Melody patiently waits at the arranged meeting place until Lectius arrives to escort her. She goes to his mansion and then gets ready there with the help of Paula. Paula finishes preparing a beautiful dress, especially for the occasion. As Melody changes into the elegant outfit and looks at her reflection, she slowly gains confidence in her appearance. Paula proudly admires the result because every detail has been carefully completed after spending 3 sleepless nights creating the perfect dress. Seeing Melody look so graceful makes all the hard work feel completely worthwhile. Meanwhile, Lectius appears unusually nervous while traveling beside Melody inside the carriage. During the journey, he suddenly reveals that their destination is the academy, where the grand ball is already beginning. The announcement immediately fills Melody with worry because she fears Luciana might recognize her if they meet inside the ballroom. Although she changed her appearance before, attending such a crowded event still feels extremely risky. She becomes uncertain whether continuing the journey is truly the right decision or whether returning home would be much safer. Lectius notices her hesitation and explains that she does not have to attend if she truly feels uncomfortable. However, he also reminds her about Paula, who spends 3 entire nights making the beautiful dress with great care and dedication. If Melody refuses to wear it after so much effort, the kind maid will surely feel heartbroken and disappointed. Those heartfelt words deeply touch Melody because she realizes how much love and dedication went into preparing everything for her. Melody finally agrees to attend the ball and informs Lectius that she is borrowing his eye and hair color.
Huh?
Using the magic, she changes her appearance so he cannot be recognized by anyone. Soon afterward, the story shifts to the academy, where nobles from many respected families gather for the magnificent ball. Marie and Christopher also arrive alongside the rest of their group, while guests continue filling the enormous ballroom. Not long afterward, Luciana enters together with Maxwell, instantly attracting everyone's attention because they look like the perfect noble couple. Although countless guests admire them throughout the evening, Luciana secretly remains nervous while trying to maintain her composure. As the dancing begins, Luciana's childhood friends become curious about Maxwell and quietly wonder why she never mentioned such a noble personality before. While everyone focuses on the elegant dancers, Melody finally enters the ballroom together with Lectius. Their graceful appearance immediately silences the crowd because they look incredibly beautiful standing beside each other. Even Count Regabas cannot stop staring at Melody because she strongly resembles her mother Selena, although her different hair and eye colors prevent him from recognizing her true identity. Melody introduces herself as Cecilia, but Luciana immediately realizes that she is actually Melody wearing a disguise. Unable to expose her while everyone watches, Luciana quietly accepts the situation. Melody notices Luciana staring across the ballroom and pretends they have never met. Slightly annoyed, Luciana watches Melody dance gracefully with Lectius before joining Maxwell herself. After the performance ends, guests spread across the ballroom and Melody already wants to go home. Just then, a special dance begins to change the atmosphere inside the grand ballroom. Every guest is surprised after hearing the unexpected rule. Instead of dancing with their usual partners, everyone must now dance with someone of the same gender. Melody never imagined such an unusual event, but Luciana immediately takes the opportunity without showing any hesitation. She firmly holds Melody's hand and confidently leads her onto the dance floor, before anyone else reacts. While everyone focuses on the announcement, a mysterious figure quietly disappears from outside the hall without attracting anyone's attention, leaving another mystery hidden behind the celebration tonight. Meanwhile, Christopher understands that this strange dance follows an important event from the original game. He explains that every partner chosen during this performance secretly affects future relationships and even changes certain story routes. Anne understands these hidden rules just as well because she knows the heroine must survive the coming incident without disturbing the future. Dancing with a trusted friend strengthens support between both characters, while dancing with an enemy unexpectedly blocks possible romantic developments. Because of this knowledge, Anne quietly watches everything with growing concern, and hopes nothing dangerous changes before the evening finally ends. As the beautiful music begins, Luciana and Melody gracefully move across the ballroom with elegant and perfectly synchronized steps. Their performance quickly captures everyone's attention because their movements appear smooth, natural, and breathtaking from beginning to end. Every guest admires their remarkable coordination while watching the pair move together with perfect balance. Melody feels especially proud because she personally teaches Luciana every dance step before this event. Her growing happiness slowly overwhelms her emotions until she accidentally loses control over her magical energy without even realizing the dangerous mistake. Tiny sparkling lights suddenly appear throughout the ballroom and gently float around every corner of the hall. The mysterious lights immediately catch everyone's attention because nobody understands where they come from. Guests become surprised by the beautiful yet unusual sight, while quietly observing the glowing particles surrounding the dancers. Luciana instantly realizes something is terribly wrong, because Melody's mana silently escapes from her body without her awareness. Thinking quickly, Luciana intentionally makes a small mistake during the performance to shift everyone's attention away from Melody before anyone discovers the dangerous truth. The unexpected distraction works exactly as Luciana hopes, because the audience immediately notices the mistake instead of the magical lights. Melody finally realizes what happens and quickly regains control over herself before the situation becomes impossible to hide. She carefully seals the escaping mana back inside her body, causing every remaining light to disappear before anyone understands their real origin. Thanks to Luciana's quick decision, Melody successfully protects her secret, while the performance continues without creating any further suspicion among the watching guests. When the dance finally ends, the audience remains amazed by the unforgettable performance and warmly applauds both dancers. Luciana immediately decides they should quietly leave before another accident happens. Melody casts a special spell that makes both of them extremely difficult for other people to notice. Using the magical concealment, they successfully slip away from the ballroom without raising anyone's suspicion. Meanwhile, Christopher and Anne sadly realize they completely lose their own opportunity to participate in the special dance because they spend the entire event watching everything unfold instead. Elsewhere, Lectius becomes deeply thoughtful after noticing Cecilia because her presence unexpectedly reminds him of Melody's mother, despite their completely different appearance. He also accepts that Melody remains so devoted to serving as a maid that romance barely exists inside her heart. Even so, growing doubts continue filling his mind. He wonders whether Melody truly has black hair and black eyes, or whether her appearance hides another secret beneath powerful magic. Strange memories repeatedly return whenever he thinks about her mysterious background, making every new realization even more confusing than before. His memories become increasingly painful because none of them match the reality before his eyes. As clouds slowly drift away, bright moonlight shines directly onto Melody, causing her hair to suddenly appear completely white. Lectius becomes confused because he personally knows Melody's mother, and clearly remembers that Melody inherits her father's hair while receiving her mother's beautiful eyes. More forgotten memories suddenly return. He remembers Melody arriving at the royal capital on the same day Selecti disappears. He also recalls finding a silver-haired girl with pale eyes whose appearance closely resembles Melody's mother. After comparing every clue, he finally becomes convinced that Melody and the missing Celeste are the same person, leaving him trapped between revealing the truth or protecting her peaceful life forever. After that, Melody introduces Pola, a talented maid working at the Lectue's mansion, to Luciana before the celebration continues. Pola handles many difficult responsibilities every day while also possessing excellent makeup skills that impress everyone around her. Luciana immediately becomes interested because she hopes to learn useful beauty techniques from Pola someday. After that, Melody decides not to return to the ballroom and instead prepares to head home. Before leaving, she carefully checks the protection spell placed on her dress to ensure everything remains stable. She also quietly casts another magical spell on Luciana without attracting anyone's attention. The new spell strengthens Luciana's senses and allows her to detect people secretly watching her with harmful intentions. Melody carefully explains that the magic reacts whenever someone looks at Luciana with genuine malice. When that happens, a bright beam of light appears, but only Luciana can see it. The spell helps her recognize hidden danger without alerting anyone nearby. Feeling reassured after preparing every safeguard, Melody peacefully leaves the royal palace while trusting the magic to protect Luciana throughout the rest of the grand celebration without unnecessary complications. Soon afterward, Maxwell warmly welcomes Luciana back into the ballroom where the celebration continues with music and laughter. While they spend time together enjoying the event, Melody's perception spell suddenly activates exactly as intended. Luciana quietly looks around the ballroom while following the magical signal guiding her attention. After carefully observing every direction, she finally notices a beautiful young woman staring directly at her with obvious hostility. The woman's expression leaves no doubt that she carries negative feelings, making Luciana realize Melody's warning proves completely accurate. Maxwell also notices the woman's behavior and immediately recognizes her identity. He explains that she is the daughter of one of the kingdom's powerful dukes and belongs to one of the highest noble families. According to his understanding, she probably becomes upset because she unexpectedly loses everyone's attention during the celebration. Everything changes after Luciana appears beside Maxwell. Their elegant appearance captures nearly every guest's attention, leaving the proud noblewoman completely ignored throughout the evening. Maxwell encourages Luciana to remain confident despite the growing hostility surrounding her. He believes academy life will become much more difficult because today's events ensure many students remember her face. Luciana cannot hide her worries because she comes from a poor noble family and fears becoming an easy target. Maxwell remains supportive throughout the conversation and decides to introduce her to several trusted friends who might help her in the future. His thoughtful decision gives Luciana a little comfort, despite the uncertain challenges waiting ahead. A few hours later, Christopher and Anne finally meet Luciana properly for the first time. Anne immediately admires Luciana's beauty and feels slightly embarrassed during their introduction because she never expected someone so graceful. Maxwell encourages everyone to become close friends because he deeply trusts both Christopher and Anne despite their constant arguments. Luciana quickly notices that their frequent disagreements never weaken their friendship. Since Anne misses the earlier special dance, both she and Christopher become curious about the identity of Luciana's mysterious dance partner from the unforgettable performance. Luciana explains that her dance partner is Cecilia, causing Christopher and Anne to become instantly excited. They believe Cecilia might somehow connect to the heroine they continue searching for since arriving at the academy. Their endless curiosity quickly overwhelms Luciana, so she simply explains that Cecilia already returns home after the celebration. She also describes Cecilia's blonde hair and overall appearance as accurately as possible. Christopher and Anne immediately become disappointed because the description completely differs from the person they expect. Even so, Anne cannot ignore that Lectius accompanies Cecilia exactly as the original game's storyline predicts. Meanwhile, Melody peacefully returns home and finishes preparing everything before Luciana eventually arrives. She enjoys completing her usual household duties, yet Lectius's strange behavior earlier continues troubling her thoughts. Back inside the palace, guests slowly begin leaving the ballroom as the celebration reaches its end. Anne and Christopher eagerly anticipate meeting Luciana again at the academy. Suddenly, Melody's protection spell reacts violently around Luciana. She immediately remembers that the enchanted necklace detects murderous intent aimed at nearby people. Looking ahead, she realizes Christopher is the true target. Without hesitation, Luciana pushes him aside and receives the deadly sword strike herself. Everyone watches in complete horror as she collapses onto the floor, and the hidden villain Quietel Bjork finally reveals himself before everyone. The next day, Melody quietly goes about her usual routine inside the mansion, brewing a fresh pot of tea for Luciana. She expects her to walk through the door any minute, so everything has to be perfect, just like always. Then reality decides to kick the front door off its hinges. A violent gust of wind tears through the room with enough force to throw Melody off balance. The eerie blast doesn't feel natural in the slightest, and before she can recover, Luciana's favorite teacup slips from her hands, crashes onto the floor, and explodes into tiny pieces. Somewhere else, Luciana's parents are practically running on panic and caffeine as they desperately try every possible way to wake their unconscious daughter. The story also drops a massive reveal about its main cast. Melody is actually the Silver Saint connected to the 5 vows, except the poor girl has absolutely no clue she's carrying around that kind of destiny. Life really loves handing people legendary responsibilities without bothering to leave an instruction manual. As her journey unfolds, several men eventually become potential love interests. Christopher, Maxwell, and Lectias all end up playing major roles in her future. The biggest surprise, however, is Quail Bjork. Long before becoming one of the story's most dangerous figures, he is just a child whose heart is stolen by the Dark Lord. His miserable life starts inside a hidden village inhabited by powerful mages, but that peaceful beginning doesn't last for long. The universe apparently looked at his childhood and chose violence. Soldiers from a neighboring nation storm the village without mercy, slaughtering his parents while reducing the settlement to ruins. Since young Bjork already knows how to use magic, the invaders decide he is worth more alive than dead. Instead of killing him, they sell him off to mercenaries. From that point on, his life becomes one long nightmare. Every mistake earns him another beating. Every day feels worse than the last, and kindness becomes something he barely remembers. Those pathetic excuses for human beings treat a child like a punching bag, proving some villains don't need supernatural powers to be absolute monsters. Years crawl by before Bjork finally spots an opportunity to escape. After turning 18, his masters drag him into the Great Venargand forest to hunt dangerous monsters, completely unaware that their own prisoner has already started planning their downfall. Unfortunately for them, there's one annoying little problem. The magical slave contract prevents Bjork from attacking his owners directly. Instead of acting like an impatient idiot, he keeps his cool and searches for another way. The forest almost seems to sense the hatred festering inside him, quietly leading him toward a mysterious sword hidden deep within the darkness. An unknown force demands a sacrifice before letting him claim the blade. The moment he accepts the price, the slave contract instantly shatters. Just like that, the leash around his neck disappears. From that day forward, Bjork begins hunting members of the Théolas family because only their blood can break an ancient seal. Back in the present, Christopher wastes no time barking orders. He tells Anne to move into position while ordering Maxwell to stay back, since charging into battle unarmed would be the kind of decision only a complete clown would make. Bjork watches the entire preparation with a calm smile, looking almost disappointed that this is the best his opponents can come up with. Christopher and Anne immediately combine their magic to forge a weapon. Anne already knows Bjork isn't some loser who can be defeated with brute force. Only the awakened saint can truly bring him down. Even so, silver weapons can still exploit one crucial weakness, giving ordinary fighters at least a fighting chance instead of signing their own obituaries. Christopher pours powerful creation magic into the weapon, transforming the modest blade into an enormous blood-red sword. Even Bjork pauses for a moment, genuinely curious about such an unusual spell, though not nearly curious enough to stop planning everyone's funeral. Meanwhile, Anne rushes over to Luciana, knowing she's still the strongest healer they have. While moving, she can't help remembering the original version of her game character. That useless girl spent every crisis crying, hiding behind other people, and acting like an arrogant nuisance without contributing a single helpful thing. If there were awards for being deadweight, that pathetic loser would have needed an extra shelf just to display the trophies. The real Anne refuses to follow that path. She dedicates herself to preparing for the future battle against the Dark Lord. She studies alchemy, masters healing magic, and develops original spells capable of creating powerful weapons. Instead of copying the weak character from the game, she relies on her own abilities and determination. Anne carefully cleans Luciana's injury with a disinfecting spell, while fearing the wound requires immediate surgery. After examining the damage more closely, she discovers something impossible. Despite the terrifying strength behind Bjork's attack, Luciana remains completely unharmed. Only her clothing is torn apart, even though the strike should have killed her instantly. Bjork feels genuinely surprised but immediately prepares another attack. Anne becomes furious because he treats human lives as completely worthless. She launches Shooting Star, her strongest spell, filling the attack with brilliant silvery energy. Bjork easily destroys the magic and dismisses it as nothing special. While mocking their limited understanding of silver, he completely misses the hidden effect inside Anne's spell. Anne's magic quietly restores Silver's forgotten power within Bjork's own weapon. When he prepares another strike, cracks suddenly spread across the blade. Confusion quickly replaces his confidence because the spell appears far too weak to cause such damage. Moments later, he realizes the frightening truth. Shooting Star transforms the mana inside his sword into supreme silver, the sacred energy connected to the awakened saint. Bjork cannot understand why this happens, because he cannot sense the saint anywhere nearby. Christopher immediately realizes they finally have an opening, and charges forward with everything he has. His powerful strike crashes into Bjork's weakening sword. Anne and Maxwell instantly combine their attacks, forcing Bjork into a defensive position for the first time during the battle. The Dark Lord controlling Bjork still fails to locate the saint, but notices an unfamiliar power surrounding the battlefield. The strange energy reminds him of Melody, making the situation even more confusing. As Luciana's loyal maid, Melody's strongest desire is protecting her master. Even without realizing it, her lingering magical power continues defending Luciana from far away. The Dark Lord feels deeply humiliated by this unexpected interference. While searching for another explanation, he notices Luciana wearing the legendary silver cloak, with its incredible defense value of 999. He remembers the same equipment helping the saint defeat him long ago. Even worse, Luciana's parents also wear silver cloaks, making victory seem even farther away. Christopher notices the perfect opportunity and unleashes one final attack with every remaining ounce of courage. His strike completely shatters Bjork's mysterious sword. Anne and Christopher briefly question whether their risky plan succeeds, but the answer becomes obvious almost immediately. The Dark Lord's magic starts falling apart, weakening the entire battlefield. Unfortunately, the escaping negative mana creates another deadly threat, because breathing too much of it can kill anyone nearby. Everyone must destroy the surrounding barrier to stop the corrupted energy spreading everywhere. Meanwhile, Luciana's father completely loses his patience after watching his daughter remain unconscious. His fear quickly turns into determination as he charges toward the magical barrier surrounding the battlefield. Because he wears special protective armor connected to Melody's power, he withstands the dangerous energy long enough to strike the barrier with everything he has. The powerful shield finally breaks apart, allowing the poisonous negative mana to escape into the air before fading away. Luciana's parents immediately rush toward their daughter, holding her tightly with overwhelming relief, while Christopher stands nearby completely stunned because everything happens far beyond his expectations. The Dark Lord faces an even greater problem after his defeat. His physical body no longer exists, leaving him as nothing more than a drifting cloud of negative mana. He realizes his remaining power slowly disappears like mist under the morning sun. If he fails to find another host quickly, he will vanish forever. Taking over a human body proves extremely difficult because strong human minds fiercely resist possession. Small creatures like insects and rats are far too weak to support his power. After searching desperately, he finally discovers a tiny dog and decides the harmless animal becomes his new vessel. His escape immediately creates another unexpected problem. Instead of disappearing, the little dog's cheerful consciousness remains active inside the shared mind. The innocent animal happily believes it is already traveling toward paradise meant for good dogs, while the frustrated Dark Lord struggles to gain complete control. Forced to share thoughts with the energetic pet, he follows Luciana's familiar scent until the trail eventually leads him toward Melody's home. Knowing Luciana is currently away, the Dark Lord believes this is the perfect chance to investigate the mysterious saint without interruption. He senses only one human presence inside the house, and the person appears to possess no noticeable mana. Feeling completely confident, he quietly enters the building. His overconfidence quickly becomes his biggest mistake, because he accidentally knocks over several objects and creates enough noise to attract Melody's attention. Melody walks into the room feeling annoyed after hearing the unexpected disturbance. She immediately discovers the small dog responsible for the mess. The Dark Lord originally plans to manipulate her thoughts and uncover every secret about the hidden saint. However, the plan completely falls apart. Melody's irritation suddenly releases a tiny amount of her hidden mana without her realizing it. The instant the Dark Lord senses that unique energy, he finally understands the unbelievable truth. Melody herself is the long-awaited Silver Saint. The shocking discovery leaves the Dark Lord completely bewildered. The previous saint never manages to hide her mana perfectly, making detection possible for skilled enemies. Melody possesses extraordinary control over her sacred power. She suppresses her mana until it becomes almost impossible to detect, then releases only the smallest amount whenever necessary. After searching for so long, the Dark Lord finally uncovers her identity, while trapped inside the body of an ordinary little dog. Elsewhere, Christopher returns home feeling mentally and physically exhausted after surviving the chaotic battle. Before he has time to rest, Anne secretly enters his room through a hidden passage and surprises him. Their discussion quickly focuses on Luciana's miraculous survival. Anne reveals that Luciana escapes Bjork's terrifying attack without suffering any serious injury, even though the strike should have been fatal. Neither of them understands how such an impossible outcome becomes reality. They later question Maxwell, hoping he notices something unusual during the battle. Unfortunately, he offers no useful explanation because the mystery confuses him just as much. Anne slowly begins suspecting that Luciana somehow shares a hidden connection with the Saint. Meanwhile, Luciana shows no saint-like mana, while the Saint supposedly cannot freely use magic after entering the academy. Every clue contradicts another, leaving Anne more puzzled than ever before. Anne carefully reviews everything she remembers. Luciana's family specifically requests Melody as her personal maid, yet nobody remembers seeing any maid during the important gathering. Melody also remains home throughout the incident, making the situation feel increasingly suspicious. Luciana supposedly belongs to a poor noble family, but her beautiful clothing appears far too luxurious for someone with limited wealth. She is remarkably beautiful, constantly appears beside Maxwell, and naturally attracts everyone's attention wherever she goes. Comparing these details with the original game, Anne realizes something feels terribly wrong. A girl as beautiful and noticeable as Luciana should hold an important place within the story, yet Anne barely remembers her existence. After searching through distant memories, the forgotten name finally returns. Luciana is actually the infamous girl of tragedy. The reason Anne fails to recognize her earlier becomes surprisingly simple. The current Luciana looks completely different from the original version. In the game, Luciana serves as a tragic villain manipulated by the Dark Lord before eventually losing to the Heroine. Endless rumors, cruel bullying, and constant humiliation destroy her reputation at the academy. She avoids the grand ball because of relentless ridicule. Later, her father makes a terrible mistake, is arrested, and Luciana is expelled. Overwhelmed by jealousy toward the admired heroine, her bitterness attracts the Dark Lord, who turns her into his pawn. Everything changes within the current timeline. Instead of becoming miserable, Luciana wears magnificent dresses, travels beside Maxwell, and earns the nickname Fantastic Princess. Anne begins wondering whether Luciana also remembers another life, because the story changes dramatically around her. Christopher considers that theory difficult to believe, yet Anne cannot dismiss the possibility. Their discussion suddenly ends when overwhelming drowsiness overtakes them. Beautiful music echoes through the night despite powerful soundproofing magic. Looking outside, Anne sees countless mana particles floating across the sky. She instantly recognizes the sacred power because only the Saint creates such overwhelming magic. People throughout the area peacefully fall asleep. As the mysterious magic quietly spreads across the city, people begin falling asleep one after another without the slightest clue anything is wrong. No screams, no panic, just entire neighborhoods collectively deciding it was nap time. Inside the mansion though, Melody stays completely focused on taking care of one very scruffy puppy. The funny part is that the tiny furball is actually the Dark Lord trapped inside an innocent dog's body. One sniff is all Melody needs to reach a verdict. The poor mutt absolutely reeks after wandering around outside. That wasn't a smell anymore, it was a public health announcement. Without wasting another second, she prepares a warm bath and gently begins washing away the dirt covering his fur. What she doesn't realize is that every splash of water also strips away a huge portion of the Dark Lord's remaining negative energy. By the time she's finished, the filthy little gremlin has transformed into a fluffy silver puppy that looks healthy enough to star in a pet food commercial. After the bath, Melody prepares a fresh meal for her unexpected guest. His bright silver fur catches her attention, convincing her he simply wandered into the mansion looking for food. Instead of chasing the poor guy back outside, she decides he deserves a full stomach and a little kindness. For the first time since his existence began, the Dark Lord tastes genuinely delicious food. Even the original puppy's soul, still sharing the same body, starts experiencing emotions it never knew existed. Warmth, comfort, safety, happiness. Poor little guy had been running on survival mode for so long that basic affection felt like discovering an entirely new superpower. Before long, another Melody arrives to help decide what should be done with the unexpected visitor. The two of them briefly consider returning the puppy outside where he supposedly belongs. Then one of them imagines Luciana happily playing with the adorable fluff ball, and that idea absolutely destroys whatever remained of their resolve. The case was over before it even started. That puppy had accidentally weaponized cuteness and nobody stood a chance. One Melody prepares a cozy little bed while the other gently rocks the exhausted puppy in her arms. As she watches him, something feels off. Despite barely keeping his eyes open, the tiny pup stubbornly refuses to fall asleep. Every muscle stays tense as though drifting off for even a second would get him killed. His survival instincts had been working overtime for so long they forgot how to clock out. Without understanding the source of his fear, Melody softly begins to sing. Her beautiful voice naturally carries powerful magic that slowly eases the tension throughout his body. Even then, the Dark Lord keeps fighting the drowsiness with everything he has. The poor idiot has spent his entire existence expecting betrayal around every corner, so trusting someone else doesn't exactly come naturally. Melody unknowingly pours even more magic into her lullaby, and the soothing song drifts far beyond the mansion walls. Everyone else simply falls asleep under its influence, but the Dark Lord experiences something completely different. Rather than becoming more tired, he begins sensing Melody's emotions as though they were his own. For the first time, he truly understands the incredible kindness hidden inside her heart. No manipulation, no hidden agenda, just genuine compassion. That realization hits harder than any weapon ever could. At that exact moment, Melody is pulled into a strange vision. She suddenly finds herself standing in an unfamiliar place where a beautiful silver-haired woman happily plays with two cheerful puppies. The mysterious woman warmly thanks Melody before explaining that she has successfully fulfilled her duty as the saint. She then reveals another enormous truth about the Dark Lord. He is known as the King of Plagues and Darkness, but he isn't born as some mustache-twirling villain who wakes up looking for people to ruin. Instead, he exists as a living vessel that absorbs overwhelming negative emotions until they transform into magical energy. In this world, every powerful emotion creates magic capable of taking physical form. Joy gives birth to beautiful light energy, while hatred, sorrow, jealousy, resentment, and despair gradually become darkness. Those painful emotions continue piling up over countless years until they merge into one massive concentration of dark power. Eventually, that overwhelming darkness takes shape and gives birth to the Dark Lord himself, making him less of a monster by choice and more of a tragic embodiment of humanity's suffering. Suddenly, his existence starts looking a whole lot less black and white. The woman continues revealing Melody's true mission. The saint is never meant to destroy the Dark Lord forever. Instead, her sacred duty is healing and purifying the darkness trapped inside him until he can peacefully return to the normal world. She also explains that the imprisoned Dark Lord loses his physical body, causing fragments of darkness to scatter across many kingdoms. Those dangerous fragments later become powerful monsters that attack innocent people and bring endless disasters wherever they appear. Melody then learns that the woman is also a saint from the past. After completing her own journey, she finally understands the true purpose behind everything. She feels relieved because Melody no longer remembers her previous life. If those memories return completely, Melody would probably destroy the Dark Lord instead of saving him. Although that choice appears reasonable, eliminating him forever would also erase the only body capable of containing the dangerous darkness. Despite hearing every explanation, Melody remains completely confused by everything happening around her. Before disappearing, the former saint purifies part of the darkness hiding inside the puppy, and leaves the remaining burden for Melody. Filled with gratitude, she entrusts the future to Melody before the mysterious vision suddenly ends. Melody opens her eyes and notices the puppy is awake beside her. Most of his fur now shines bright silver, while only one ear, his tail, and his tiny paws remain black. Melody finds the unusual appearance incredibly adorable, but clearly remembers the puppy being completely silver only yesterday. That realization makes her suddenly understand that another full day already begins. She should have greeted the family much earlier that morning, so she quickly rushes through the mansion searching for everyone. While opening one of the doors, she accidentally hits a man lying unconscious on the floor. After waking, he reveals that Luciana fainted earlier, and everyone spends the night worrying about her. Melody becomes deeply frustrated because nobody informs her sooner. Without hesitation, Melody snaps her fingers and creates a magical sound resembling an enormous bell echoing directly inside everyone's minds. The powerful noise instantly wakes the entire household. Unaware of the incredible magic she casually releases, Melody rushes straight to meet Luciana. Luciana greets her happily despite remaining confined to bed because her mother insists she rests longer after staying unconscious. Melody agrees and prepares fresh clothes before the cheerful puppy suddenly appears. Melody explains he arrives hungry and becomes impossible to resist. Their mother finally allows them to keep him after promising proper care. Guided by another brief vision, Melody remembers the name Grail. Luciana instantly loves it, officially welcoming the tiny Dark Lord into the family. Later, Melody notices Luciana's beautiful dress suffers damage, so she decides to sew another while removing its nearly exhausted protective enchantment forever. Melody remains troubled as she creates the protective enchantment on Luciana's dress, yet the magic almost fails against a single sword strike. Although Luciana escapes without serious injuries, Melody cannot ignore the result. Instead of celebrating, she quietly begins wondering why her carefully designed protection nearly reaches its limit. The incident leaves her relieved about Luciana's safety, but deeply worried that an unknown danger is far stronger than expected. After that, Anne arrives with many unanswered questions. Ever since the grand ball ends in chaos, she cannot stop thinking about Luciana's impossible survival. Luciana attends an event where she originally never appears, travels beside Maxwell, survives an attack that should kill her instantly, and somehow escapes every deadly situation. Anne starts believing these events cannot simply be coincidences. A new possibility slowly forms inside Anne's mind. Since she herself remembers another life, she begins wondering whether Luciana is also a reincarnated person, hiding the same secret. However, the moment Anne enters the mansion, someone else immediately catches her attention. Melody's black hair and dark eyes look incredibly unusual within this world. After Melody politely leaves the room to prepare fresh tea, Anne decides to investigate more seriously. She secretly tests Luciana by speaking Japanese, but instead of recognizing the language, Luciana only looks confused and treats it as an unfamiliar foreign language. Before Anne can continue, Melody returns carrying tea for everyone. Seeing another opportunity, Anne carefully asks Melody similar questions about the saint. Melody admits she knows absolutely nothing, making Anne's investigation reach another dead end. With every test failing, Anne slowly accepts that Luciana probably does not remember another life, and has no knowledge about the game's original story. She changes the topic and focuses on Luciana's beautiful dress instead. Luciana happily explains that Melody creates the dress using leftover pieces of fabric with incredible skill. She proudly praises Melody for replacing the previous maid and improving every corner of the mansion through hard work and kindness. Hearing this explanation only increases Anne's suspicion because the original story begins falling apart after Luciana dismisses the old maid. Every new change pushes events farther away from their expected direction. Anne begins suspecting the dress itself hides an important secret. Luciana innocently explains that Melody places an extremely powerful protective enchantment on the clothing. According to Luciana, the spell remains strong enough to keep her alive even if the surrounding area explodes completely. Anne immediately realizes such advanced magic should normally belong only to the saint.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
Melody's extraordinary control allows her to hide overwhelming magical powers so perfectly that even remarkable spells appear ordinary to everyone nearby. After finishing her investigation, Anne apologizes for examining Luciana so carefully. She also explains that the prince wishes to visit but remains occupied with other important responsibilities. Anne expresses sincere gratitude because Luciana risks her own safety while protecting the young prince during the dangerous attack. Although the situation remains confusing, Anne respects Luciana's courage. Luciana quickly shifts her attention toward Christopher instead. She feels grateful because she believes surviving everything becomes possible, partly because of him. Christopher originally develops the idea of creating a reliable carriage system for ordinary people. That invention allows Luciana to travel safely to the capital, where she eventually meets Melody and changes her entire future. Anne remembers that she and Christopher created the transportation system together when they were only 7 years old. Their original goal is preparing society for the future conflict against the Dark Lord. That memory immediately leads Anne toward a frightening realization. Melody never reaches the capital through simple luck or destiny. She arrives because Anne and Christopher unknowingly reshape history through their own actions. The terrifying truth becomes impossible to ignore. Anne once believed the world always follows the game's original storyline regardless of anything she changes. Now she understands their choices have already changed several important events. If everyone connected to the story slowly regains forgotten memories, then the original game may already be completely beyond recognition. Determined to confirm her fears, Anne immediately decides to search for Quail Bjork. Before beginning her search, she meets Christopher and Maxwell. Unfortunately, they deliver even worse news than expected. Bjork successfully escapes while taking the mysterious sword with him. Anne grows deeply frustrated because this single event unfolds exactly like the original game despite every other change surrounding it. Meanwhile, Luciana and her family finally return home after everything settles down. As their carriage approaches the mansion, Luciana cannot stop staring at the familiar building. She remembers how lonely and frightening the place once felt when she lives there almost completely alone. Everything changes after Melody enters her life. Melody fills the mansion with warmth, supports Luciana through every hardship, and even brings the adorable puppy into her peaceful daily routine. Before they even step inside, a wonderful smell welcomes everyone from the entrance. The doors open, revealing Melody waiting with a freshly prepared lunch already arranged on the table. Overwhelmed by happiness, Luciana runs toward Melody and warmly embraces her. The joyful reunion makes the gloomy mansion finally feel like a real home. Several peaceful days later, Luciana surprises everyone by wearing the same maid uniform as Melody. She personally chooses the outfit because she wants to understand Melody's daily work, instead of simply watching from the sidelines. Seeing this enthusiasm, Luciana's father asks Melody to train his daughter as a maid for one full day. Melody accepts the responsibility, but makes the training surprisingly demanding. She guides Luciana through endless cleaning and organizing throughout the large mansion. By evening, Luciana feels completely exhausted. However, the difficult experience helps her understand how much effort Melody quietly invests every single day. Working side by side also brings them much closer together. Since Luciana temporarily becomes a trainee instead of the household's young lady, Melody comfortably calls her by her first name. That simple change fills Luciana with quiet happiness. Later, while serving tea, Luciana accidentally interrupts her parents during a deeply private family discussion, leaving her embarrassed and forever changing how she views them afterward. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.
I heard that you addicted to them sands now.